But today's the day that we end up going to explore something that is actually quite bittersweet. See, at this point, GWR are currently running a service from Brighton to Worcester Foregate Street, and it did used to run all the way to Great Malvern. But sadly, this route is now getting withdrawn for many other reasons that, apart from not many people doing the whole route, to the fact that not many of these services run in the first place. Those are good enough reasons to then cancel a service or to withdraw it. But welcome to the episode where I will take you on this service. I'm currently sat in Havant at the moment. I'm going to take you on the service that will live on forever in my memories, that started at Brighton and it went to Great Malvern. And more details will follow at each of the stations because I've got something else planned as well. See you on the train. There are many mysteries of the British Railway that are dying to be discovered. Join me, Darren Stratton, as I take you around the four corners of the UK to explore the many mysteries that are hidden between a station and its platforms. The opportunity train is arriving, so let's hop aboard and get exploring. Here I am, just on the train, coming out of Havant. What I'm going to do with this episode is I'm going to be looking at, because there's also a service that goes from Portsmouth Harbour to Bristol and on to Cardiff. So I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison of them as a way of this, because this would have been my research before this gets scrapped. But the thing that's heartbreaking at this point is I've just seen, as I've got on this train, I've just seen a little plaque that said farewell, the direct route from Brighton up to Worcester, and I just suddenly found out that this service had been going since 1930, so 92 years. Now this is only the second time that I've done this route up to Bristol. I've done it once before, and it's sad to say that I'm never going to be able to do it again. So as a way of commemorating this, I'm going to stop at I'm going to do some information at certain stations, and we'll just have a look at that. See you soon at the next station. Here I am in Cosham on the next leg of the tour, and we are 6 minutes in. So what we're doing at this point is just comparing the side-by-side difference between Portsmouth and Bristol and Havant and Bristol. So we are 2 minutes ahead of time at this point in comparison from Fratton to Cosham, because coming here from Fratton would have taken 8 minutes on the train, and here it would have taken, here it's taken just 6. And the thing that is just, I love doing this sort of research. I mean, even though it's unscripted, it doesn't stop me from doing some prior research to this. And now we're going to do something that hasn't been done before. It's been done a while, but this train didn't usually call it Cosham. It did. Porchester, even. And that's what's happening now. And now I'm going to see you at the next land station. In Fareham, we have a good amount of services that come at this, call at this station, and they would go to London Waterloo, London Victoria, so technically it's a win-win. I always say that there's a theory that all platform ones in the south of England are London bound, and that is you've got, well, technically here both are, because we're on platform 1 at the moment, and then you've got services to London Waterloo via Basingstoke. And then platform 3, you go over to platform 3 for services to London Victoria, and that will go up via Horsham. It's interesting that I can talk about different services that are on this line, and we be able to branch off and just work at that, and just this is a rather adventurous journey that I find myself on, and I'm very excited to take you all with me. So Southampton Central is the station that plays a key role in all things Southwest adventurous. It offers services across the whole of the south of England, goes up to Manchester, down to Bournemouth, and it also has the honour of hosting the very last GWR service from Brighton. Now this would have been station number 9 on the route, but we've called it Porchester as well, so this then becomes station number 10 on the route. And I'm just thinking of what would have happened if they'd extended their journey to Hereford, because there are some GWR services that run from London Paddington over to Hereford, where they would have called that Malvern Link, Great Malvern, Ledbury, Cornwall and Hereford. And more details will follow with that once I've successfully completed my analysis. The idea that I had for a game, we're trying to commemorate the last GWR service from Brighton, and that is how many stations on this line that go from Brighton up to Worcester Foregate Street. Actually, I'm going up to Great Malvern, that begin with the letters G, W or R. Now, starting at Brighton, we've got Worthing, and we've got Romsey, Warminster, Westbury. Not many. Sea. Gloucester. Both the stations in Worcester and Great Malvern. That's about it. And I'm still working on what it would have been like if this train would have carried on to Hereford, and I think I've just about got it sorted, so I'm going to mention that in a few minutes. Here we are in Salisbury. It is worth noting at this point that if you remember the first episode of this, where I looked at the different stations with mixed platforms, and I mentioned that Romsey, Mottersfont, Dunbridge and Dean were managed by GWR, but it just suddenly occurred to me at this point that they're now managed by SWR, and SWR taken over management of those stations in April 2020. It seems to be well fitting at the time, considering that there are no GWR services that call at Mottersfont and Dunbridge or Dean, and that's been the case for a number of years. They just go straight from Romsey to Salisbury. Now, it's also worth noting that I mentioned earlier about my research, where I looked at what would happen if GWR extended their journey to Hereford, and the route would have gone something like this: Hove, Shoreham-by-Sea, Worthing, Barnham, Chichester, Havant, Cosham, Fareham, Southampton Central, because it didn't call it Porchester, Romsey, Salisbury, Warminster, Dilton Marsh, which is a request stop, just as a side note, guys, Westbury, Trowbridge, Bradford-on-Avon, Avon-Cliff, Freshford, Bath Spa, Oldfield Park, Keynsham, Bristol Temple Meads, Filton Abbey Wood, Bristol Parkway, Yates, Cavan Dursley, Gloucester, Cheltenham Spa, Ashchurch for Tewkesbury, Worcester Scrub Hill, Worcester Foregate Street, Malvern Link, Great Malvern, Ledbury, Colwall and Hereford. It's also interesting to note at this point that Hereford is managed by TfW because it's on the English-Welsh border, and it's also worth noting that if that journey did continue to Hereford, that it would have taken the best part of 6 hours to complete. Now joined by John Goddard from GWR, and he's sportingly agreed to give you viewers at home the insight of what's going on with this GWR service, and he's here to answer any questions that are on your minds.
So yes, today is basically the last day that we're running trains from Brighton. New timetable starts next week, so there's a few variations to our train service, and these trains will still be running, but this particular one starts from Salisbury from next week rather than Brighton.
So would that mean then that with a change of Salisbury that you would be able to then still get a link to Cheltenham Spa or onward journey to Worcester?
Yes, this train will still run. It starts from Salisbury and runs through to Worcester from next week. So if you're travelling from south of Salisbury, there will be a change involved, but yes, you'll still get to make the journey.
So it's not necessarily that bad then on that part, because I mean I can understand sort of why they're scrapping the service from Brighton, because I think based on my understanding there was only 2 trains a day, and they never ran on a weekend. Right. So there was always that to put into perspective as well. But then also the passenger numbers were pretty high all the way through, all the way during the 92-year run. Now I don't know what it was like running at the very beginning. It was way before my time. This service started in 1930, and now, based on my own experiences, this used to run to Worcester Scrub Hill when you were running first Great Western, when it went to Worcester Scrub Hill, and then it extended to Great Malvern, and then we just come back on us, and then we go to Worcester Foregate Street. So, what would you say is the necessary changes to that specific? So why can a route change in relation to any type of services and not just GWR?
Well, it's basically a product of, yes, the timetable is reviewed regularly and changes are made for various reasons, and although we've been running trains from Brighton for many years, there's been regular changes to what times they run, which destinations they go to, for various reasons. So it's just, it's an evolving situation, really.
Yeah, and a journey from Brighton to Great Malvern would have taken about 5.5 hours from start to finish. Now, I just wonder, how long would this train take from Brighton to Worcester Foregate Street? Because I've never quite figured that out myself.
I'd have to check, I can't remember off the top of my head. It's basically 3 hours from Brighton to Bristol, and then another couple of hours after that.
So about 5 hours.
Roughly, yes. I'm going to need to go and do something else for a second.
Thank you very much, and
hope you enjoy your journey.
Thank you, and I'll see you guys in Warminster. So here we are in Warminster Station, and we are just a few minutes behind schedule because of the fact that this train from Brighton calls at more stations, so we are going to be further behind the Portsmouth coast, as it were, because then we're now calling it Dilton Marsh, which is situated between Warminster and Westbury. Well, I say we call it Dilton Marsh. It's a request stop. So, and basically what a request stop is, it's like a bus. It's a bus stop the bus, this train, like the bus, will only stop at Dilton Marsh when you want it to. Otherwise, it can just go straight past. And I'm going to experience this firsthand as to what happens and if anyone needed the change at Dilton Marsh. Here we are in Westbury, and this is the one that takes you up to London Paddington, platform 1. Will take you up to London Paddington and going over to Reading that way. And we've just, I'd say we're about halfway through the journey. I mean, I'm coming off of Bristol Parkway, and we're just going to be looking at the opportunities of what's to come. Now, if you had a look at the interview that I did with John Goddard, you will then note that they're now starting these services at Salisbury rather than at Brighton. So you would have to, if you want onward journey from today or from tomorrow, you would be changing at Salisbury. For me, I'd be changing at Portsmouth Harbour as well. So we've got that in mind, but then I've got the choice. I can either change at Portsmouth Harbour and go to Salisbury, or change at Southampton Central. The only thing that I could think of, the most practical thing to do from Bedhampton, would be to change at Portsmouth and Southsea because of that. But we do have some sort of service that goes to Keynsham, Oldfield Park, because there are other services that call at those services and that call at those stations from Weymouth. You've got GWR services that go via Dorchester West. Now, more information about that will follow in a later episode, where I look at the stations of Dorchester South and Dorchester West. Dorchester South is managed by SWR and Dorchester West is managed by GWR. Same service as some other stations in the UK.
Very good morning to all customers.
Here we are in Trowbridge. Now, Trowbridge is another one of those stations that plays host to the GWR services going in between Weymouth and Gloucester, and also the services that run from Portsmouth to Cardiff. And it will also stay true when these services eventually get curtailed to start at Salisbury instead. And the interesting side of things when it comes to that is you've got so much potential that's going on here that it's just typical when things change. So while I'm gutted that that's happened, we're losing this service from Brighton, it isn't entirely lost. It just means that, as I said earlier, and John as well, that there is going to be a change or two on the cards. So here we are now at the station of, and this is one of those that I've not visited yet, so a visit to this station will definitely be on the cards in the very near future, and it'd be interesting to see where this journey will take me after that. Now, I would like to pay a visit to Weymouth. I've done that a few times, but I've not done it via GWR. So what I'm going to end up doing then at some point is I'm going to take a train. So I'll start at Havant, then I'll change at Southampton Central to then go to Salisbury, and then I'll go to Gloucester. I think I might need to do this a bit earlier, but then I can do that up to, even if I have to change at Bristol Temple Meads, and just grab one back from there. But it'd be interesting to see where it goes. And I'll do this sort of same style video when I'm on that train. So then you get to see the journey in action, and then I get to document as far as I can. So here we are, just arrived into Bath Spa, and the one thing that just struck me on the while that I've called through this station is it almost reminds me of the station layout. It almost reminds me of the same as the layout in Havant. There's a huge gap between the two platforms, and it just makes me sort of ponder as to whether or not there used to be passing tracks in the middle, so that meant then that fast trains would then be able to just whiz through and not call it any platform. I'm just wondering if the same was the case here as it was in Havant. Well, that remains to be known. More details of that will happen when I get to a later episode. But for now, we are going to make our way to Bristol Temple Meads, and that will be where I conclude this episode. So here we are, just arrived into Bristol Temple Meads, and it's just worth noting at this point that this train then does an onward journey to Worcester Foregate Street, calling at Filton Abbey Wood, Bristol Parkway, Yate, Cammon Dursley, Gloucester, Cheltenham Spa, Ashchurch Tewkesbury, Worcester Shrub Hill and Worcester Foregate Street. But sadly, the documenting of this journey for me has now come to an end. I hope you enjoyed the documenting of the last GWR service from Brighton. Join me in the next episode where I join up with Adam and we take you around the 3 railway stations of Cardiff. We have got some very exciting news which we will bring to you in the next episode. I have been Darren Stratton and I would like to thank you for watching.